Well, Happy New Year, everybody. John Felt here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing, January 5th, 2020. Well, the two areas that I'm sort of focusing on here are the southeast U.S. up into the Ohio River Basin, and then the Pacific Northwest. I think those are the two areas that will be the most active as we get into the month of January. So right now what we have here is we have a weather system, frontal boundary, that's pushed off the East Coast that produced a lot of rain across the southeast U.S. over the last week. The middle part of the nation, we have a cold front that has passed, a lot of close isobars here, and that means a lot of wind in this area. And then a third system moving into the Pacific Northwest that'll enhance rain and snow in that area. So we do have wind advisories in this area. We have some winter weather advisories in the Pacific Northwest. And we have some flooding here from the last system that pushed through. So here was all the rain last week, really two areas, and you know what? It's going to be similar this week. So we're going to have back-to-back weeks, and when we get back-to-back weeks, you know what that means, a better risk for flooding. So anywhere from 1 to 5 inches of rain in this band right here over the southeast U.S. into the Ohio River Valley. Sort of keep this in mind when I show you the forecast rain later in the briefing. You're going to see a very similar overlap. And then the Pacific Northwest, an enhancement of rain and snow. Now we did have snow. This goes back almost a week ago over the upper Midwest, and that is beginning to melt behind it here. This orange is active melting, and what we have here is some colder air working in, so it's not going to certainly melt all of it. And I'm going to talk more and more about managed melting of snow. And what I mean by that, if you heard my briefings last year about this time and then even going into spring, is you don't want it to build up. You want some interludes of some milder air to sort of work some of that moisture out, melt some of that snow, work some of the water down the riverways. But that's probably not going to occur from a climatological standpoint. And when you hear my briefing, you're going to see it's not going to occur either, because this area is going to have much colder temperatures. So right now we have a pretty stable air mass. We have some moisture pushing into the Pacific Northwest with that Pacific system. The moisture over the southeast is now pushed off, and we have basically some stable air, dry and stable air over the U.S. So we're sort of setting the stage. It won't be till later in the week, in about 5-6 days out, before we get more action in the southeast U.S., and then the Pacific Northwest will be busier right around the corner as that system pushes in. Now temperatures were well above normal over the last week, especially over the Ohio River Valley, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, 10 to 15 degrees above normal. Now this gives you some idea of where we've had the action. This is the number of rain days, our measurable rain over the last 30 days. And what you can see here is we're looking at the Pacific Northwest, or the western U.S., and then this area right in here, the eastern, maybe quarter, maybe 20% of the nation have been very active. Everywhere else, the middle part of the U.S. has been quite quiet, especially Oklahoma and Texas. So we have a lot of stream flow running above normal in these areas where we had the heavy precipitation, right in this area here. We also limited higher stream flow in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, so when we look at the jet stream analysis right now, we have the system that affected the eastern U.S. has pushed off. We have the Clipper system here that's very high winds behind it. That's going to sweep through very quick, and because the air is dry, we're not going to get a lot of precipitation with it. And then here's the system in the Pacific Northwest. Now last Friday I sent out a post showing how the Pacific North America pattern index is forecast to go so negative here. And when we get these oscillations that go fairly extreme, it means we're going to have strong anomalies. And along those strong anomaly areas, the boundaries, is usually where we're going to have very active weather. So what we see here is we're getting into an alignment where we're going to have a dip in the jet stream over the west and a pushing north over the east. Look how strong this pattern is. Well above normal atmospheric pressure, well below normal atmospheric pressure. Temperatures are going to go right along with that. We're going to have much colder air over the upper Midwest and northern plains, and we're going to have much milder weather over the southeast and the eastern U.S. And right along that boundary of the moist air and the cooler air is where the action will be. Now this is about 6 days out there. It shows the next system. And the two areas, like I said, I want to focus on Pacific Northwest and the southeast U.S. Those are the two areas that look like they're going to be busy over the next week. So we're going to have very heavy rain over these areas, and I think both areas represent a potential for flooding. High snow potential over the Cascades and the west coast of Oregon and Washington State. Very heavy rain, 1 to 4 inches, locally even 5 to 6 inches over parts of the southeast U.S. into the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys. And if you remember when I started off, this is a pretty similar overlap, maybe a little bit further north, but still there's an overlap here, so this is a fairly high risk for excessive rainfall. Now, it doesn't look like there's going to be much snow this week. There will be a bit in the Great Lakes region, higher elevation of the Cascades, higher elevations of the Appalachians, but it looks like mainly rain, it will be the biggest impact. We look at the 6 to 10 day. Look at this, not much change in this pattern, not much change in this pattern. So it is going to show the 6 to 10 day an enhanced risk for rainfall, and that could even continue into the 8 to 14 day range. So as far as our threat assessment, the heavy precipitation over the Pacific Northwest, some heavy snow in the 6 to 10 day over the far northeast U.S., and then we have this rain event starting around the 10th, heavy rain, and then the 11th through the 17th in this area here. Now this is a high risk for heavy rain. It's pretty rare, very rare if you see actually a high risk, so I am concerned with the flooding potential with this system. Now I looked out on the climate forecast system. This is a weekly precipitation with a climate model, so it's not as reliable as the medium scale or short-term models, but I wanted to look at it and sort of maybe give some idea on if this vulnerability will continue as we get through the rest of the month of January. And a couple observations. It does look like on the parts of the southeast U.S. do look vulnerable for continued above normal precipitation. Pacific Northwest looks like maybe not so much, maybe a couple weeks of drier weather. And then if there's any maybe good news here is over the middle part of the nation, I don't see a whole lot of active winter weather right now. So that's just a summary. It's a climate model, so take it with a grain of salt. So anyway, in summary, this week it looks like we're going to be looking at the southeast U.S. for heavy rain and the Pacific Northwest. Middle part of the nation, fairly quiet. That's this week's briefing. Have a great week.